Hello, good morning, everyone. Morning, Alchemy University. Today is Thursday, and we're going to be going through the Blockchain Explorer. How's everyone doing today? I see peace, love, and Web3 in the chat. I'm loving it. So today we're going to be going through a recap of what was last week. So last week you guys went through some Ethereum basics, and you built a block explorer. Give me 1 second. I had YouTube on the background and it went right in my ear. I'm Cody. For those of you that haven't met me yet, I'm a part of the AU team. And so I'm going to be bringing on Jacob in a second. And he's going to be going through, like I said, a recap of last week. We'll bring on 2 students that will go through their version of the Blockchain Explorer. And then we'll intro you guys to some of the content that you're going to see for next week, where we're finally hit Solidity. I'll let Jacob jump into all of that, but let me bring Jacob on the stage right now. Hey, Jacob.
Actually for me, it's 1 a.m. Friday. So wherever you are in the world, I hope you guys are awake and going to enjoy our little show today. So I think the first thing that I kind of wanted to do was just go ahead and share my screen, do a very quick, kind of review of what we learned this week, and then we'll bring up Alderian and then Anmol, and they'll kind of demo their blockchain projects for us. So just to kind of add context, let me go ahead and present. Okay. And here we are. So if we remember kind of what we studied this past week, we went over the general features of Ethereum, got really deep into what really is Ethereum, what gas is on Ethereum, what transactions are, what accounts are, things like that. We also got a lot into how do we read data from Ethereum, right? Like it's a big blockchain with a lot of data. How do we get that data out? We talked about transactions. Typically, transactions, that's another way of saying basically if we create a transaction, we're writing to the blockchain, right? So that's what all transactions are about. And we got some practice with that. And then we also discussed, when we originally did these things like reading and writing to the blockchain, we did it at a very low level using JSON RPC. And while that's really good and cool and everything like that, it's a pretty low level thing with no abstractions. So we kind of moved up. We looked at Ethers.js, and we started kind of learning how we can do all these JSON RPC requests to do read and writes in a much higher level abstracted way using Ethers. And so hopefully that was really helpful for you guys. And then the week 3 assignments were to basically build your own block explorer. And with that, you could have possibly used, like Ethers.js or the Alchemy SDK. And, I'm really excited to see what you guys have done with your block explorers. So without further ado, I would kind of like to bring up Alderian. And if you, maybe Cody, you can bring him on, and I will stop sharing my screen. Without further ado, I would kind of like to bring up Alderian. And if you, I'm hearing a lot of lag here. Sorry. There you go. Okay, we got.
Whoops, wrong person there. Sorry.
Yeah.
Anmol, we'll bring you on in just a second. We're bringing on Alderian right now, and then we'll jump into you. Hey, Alderian, how are you?
Hello, everybody. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, we're really happy to have you. Thanks for kind of having the courage to come on stage and demo your project. It's we're always kind of interested. I'd just like to know if you could share with us a little bit about your background, your coding background, what brought you here, like what makes you interested in Web3, and what are your goals to get out of the course?
Okay. First of all, I'm from Argentina, like GDG. I work on a company that brings product for fintechs and banks. They make we are making an API for them. I'm a software engineer, pretty senior, and more than 20 years of experience. And I dedicated most for Web2 products. And this year I started learning about Web3. I started with crypto zombies. And then Yes, and then I learned about alchemy. I don't know exactly where, because I was trying to find a good course where I can learn not only solidity, but also how to present it in production. I mean, the JavaScript part, how to build a server for the JavaScript, and how to connect with a node and interact. So some time ago, maybe 4 months from now, I learned about Alchemy Road to Web3. I started doing those courses. The challenges were great. And then I got realized that I was not that good in JavaScript. So I just started with the JavaScript course, and well, here I am doing the JavaScript course is done, and now I am with Ethereum Bootcamp. Sorry.
Cool, awesome. Well, what I'm just curious, what languages do you normally use to program?
Oh, I started with C++ and Pascal long time ago. Now,
Okay. Oh,
yes,
geez. Okay. Like me, yeah.
yes, nowadays I'm programming in Java and JavaScript. I code with a Spring framework and with AngularJS. It is pretty
Oh, okay.
old too.
Cool. Well, great. That's awesome to hear, especially with Angular being a front end. I'm curious. I mean, that's maybe a good segue into your demo of your blockchain explorer. Yeah, and I'm just kind of curious. Like, did you actually use Angular for the block explorer, or did you go with React, or which way did you go there?
No, first I was tempted, but we use a very I don't know how to say it. It's AngularJS, but it is too much customized. So to add that framework to this challenge would be overkill. So we use Material UI for AngularJS, and so I said myself, why not use Material UI? And I did it with React. It was an amazing experience. It was like, I don't know, first the first minute was like cutting an apple with a spoon. It was like impossible. But then I learned about Material UI. And well, it was pretty simple because the way of coding is not the same, okay? But the name of the components and the name of the way they arrange the items in the screen is the same like Material UI in AngularJS. And so I felt comfortable with it, and it was not a problem to do the challenge. And well, the site got pretty well.
Cool. Well, you want to go ahead and share your screen and show us all your good news?
Okay, give me 1 minute. Are you seeing it?
Yeah, sure can.
Okay. Well, this version is on my computer. I have the blockchain explorer deployed in Vercel. It is older than this, so I will present with this version. Do I go on?
Yeah, sure. I mean, yeah, like if you just
Okay.
want to walk us through, like it looks like maybe, everything's linked together, so the block hashes, and yeah, it's like kind of just walk us through everything you built here. It looks great.
Yeah, okay. Well, I started taking a look to Etherscan and Starknet scan. The Starknet scan is pretty new. It is a roll-up layer 2 protocol. And well, I took ideas from both of them. One of the ideas I took is this search bar where you can put any hash. You can put the block number or the hash of a block, the hash of a transaction, or the hash of an account.
Interesting.
And so, yes.
And how did you know, like, so if I could put anything in that search bar, how did the code distinguish between like a block hash transaction?
Okay, I didn't do much coding about that. Let me show you. Here is the search bar. Here's the part of the styling. And here is the magic. Let me close this so you can have more. Okay, what I'm doing is pretty simple and pretty straightforward. If I distinguish it started with a 0x, I can distinguish it's not a block number. If it is, I go here. If it is an integer, I just forward to the block page. If it starts with a 0x, and if it's 42 length string, it is an address, because only addresses like this one, for instance,
Hey, Alder.
only addresses has current.
I don't mean to interrupt. Can you just make sure to zoom in just a little bit? It's kind of hard to see on the
This one or this one?
mostly the code. Yeah, the code tends to be it's something we all run into when we live stream. Make sure it's big enough that people can see. I appreciate it.
Yeah, that's great. Oh, that's perfect. No worries. That's great.
Okay.
So yeah, so I see, like, yeah, so if it's 42, like with the addresses, we know that those are like you have the 2 extra bytes for the 0x, and then you have 40 extra bytes for the address. So that's really cool.
Yes, of course. Awesome. Also about the block and the transaction hash, they are both 64 length. So adding the 0x is 66. So the only way I found, and that was fast enough to go on and not scramble with it, was to try first to get a block, and if not, try to get the transaction. And here, when I call this function, sorry, the first thing I do for the block, for everything, but for the block, just to show you how this if works. First, I ask the API about the block. If the block exists, I continue and go to the block. If not, I return a false, and that's why this if will fail and go to the transaction page.
Got it.
So if I copy this block, for instance, goes to the block detail.
Cool. Very clean.
Yeah. And if I will walk you through the rest, but I think this part is it was pretty difficult at first, but then it just pop up. And transaction number, just do an enter, and it goes to a transaction. And if I put any address, it goes to the address. every link is connected. This icon just copy to the clipboard the address or the blog or whatever. And well, I will show you another thing if I can. One thing I found in every scanner, either scan or Polygon scan, they have the value of the well, here Ether or Matic or whatever. So for this, I kind of got out of the box. I use the CoinGecko API.
Okay, cool. Very nice touch there. Let's see. It looks like everything's down a little bit today, unfortunately. So not going to be retiring anytime soon, I guess. But that's good information to have.
Yes.
Yeah.
I added the color because it was green when I was doing this.
Oh, that's always want a demo. Always want a demo in the green, man.
Yes.
Cool. And this is great. This is very clean. If I kind of just want to ask you, what did you find? Was kind of like the hardest part of this project in terms of the blockchain, Ethereum, interacting, getting data from it. What did you find to be the most challenging aspect of this project?
Okay, one thing I found out is in terms of what happened? Maybe I choose a transaction that. Oh, okay. Let's go here just to show you what. Okay, all this information about the transaction detail is not available in one API. I had to request to do two requests to two different APIs from Alchemy. At first, that was a challenge because I thought that was my mistake. So that was the first thing. But what I found out is here is the receipt API didn't return all the things I wanted to show at the same time. I'm sorry, I'm not remember exactly what missed in one or the other, but I needed to do these two calls to and wrap them all in one response. This was one thing. Yes, it was pretty simple. But the thing is that at first I didn't realize that the other part of the transaction was in the transact API and not in core API.
Interesting. That's a really interesting call. It's interesting to see the way you use the Alchemy SDK here and which different kind of namespaces you had to use to get which type of data. It's really interesting to see. Excellent job here. Excellent job.
Mm-hmm. This is something we do a lot in my shop. We do one file or maybe one directory with a lot of files that wrap up all the calls to the other backend or API. Here in this single JS, I have all the calls to the Alchemy API, and I do a lot of transformations. I don't know what to say. I touch a lot of the data that the API returns. In fact, the address tokens, I want to show this because it's incredible when I when I do the request to this API, the one that returns the addresses, I got realized that something magical happened to the token.
Oh,
It
interesting.
just returns the icon of the token. that was really interesting. So I started to say why not, and this is why I do this, and I didn't continue. I thought of adding the here also the price of the token to have like in Etherscan. When you go to Etherscan, you can see not only the name and the symbol quantity, but also you can see the price if it's available.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Yes.
Sorry.
No, that's it.
Yeah, no, I think this is great, very clean. I just kind of want to I'm seeing lots of great comments from different people about your UI and how clean it is. I kind of just want to ask you like one final question.
Yes.
Like you just kind of brought up something really interesting about the prices, right? So, like, like you mentioned CoinGecko earlier, and I just wanted to ask you, like, we're querying the blockchain, right? We're talking to the blockchain. We're getting all this information about the block, the block number, the block hash, the transactions. Like, did you ever come across the point where you were trying to get token prices off the blockchain directly, or was that like something maybe you were looking at getting it from a party API?
Yes, I did the road to Web3 up to the 7th week.
Okay.
I did I don't remember the number of weeks that integrates with Chainlink. And Chainlink has their own oracles that can bring the price of the token from the blockchain. It is not exactly like that, but summarizing it, you can get the price in a Solidity contract of the token.
Yeah, exactly. And it's kind of like a leading question. It's a little bit early to be asking questions like these, but I'm glad you answered it that way. It sounds like you have experience from Road to Web3, which is awesome. We'll get to this later on the course, but yeah, like when you're getting price data of given tokens, it's not so straightforward to just get it off the blockchain. Like you need oracles and things like that, or you need to get it from a third party. But it's kind of like this interesting thing. You can't necessarily just get prices by directly querying the blockchain. And so we'll get into that later in the course, but I just wanted to ask you about that. And it sounds like you're kind of ahead of the curve there. So
yes, of course.
Aldarian, like, thank you so much. Great. We really appreciate you coming up, and we appreciate your bravery. And, it's always a big stage here. So thanks a lot for demoing for us. And really appreciate it.
Okay, thank you for having me here. I'm really happy. This is awesome for me.
Oh, you did great, man. Yeah, absolutely. We're grateful to have you here. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Aldarian. You will be getting a swag drop, Alchemy U swag drop. So I will contact you afterwards. And so, yeah, anyone that presents in the future, we're giving out swag to the presenters to thank them for contributing to the community.
Nice.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I'll contact you after. And we'll see you in the Discord.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
You're welcome. Yeah, see ya.
See you later. Thank you.
Cool.
Yeah, so that was a great demo. And yeah,
that was fantastic. I love seeing just how closely related some of these projects come to like production apps. And when he first pulled it up on the screen, I was like, is he showing us like Etherscan? Like, I think I've seen this before. I didn't look exactly like Etherscan, right? But like it was so close to production that it tricked me at first. So it's really cool to see. Great job, Aldarian. So next we have Anmal that we're going to pull up, and he's gonna show off his project as well. So let me grab him up. Thank you so much, Aldarian. Hey, Emil.
You will
I
be
think
getting
we're getting some double
swag
feedback
drop,
when I tell you on the
swag
stage.
drop, so I
Can
will
you turn
contact
off your
afterwards.
YouTube?
And so, yeah, anyone that presents in the future, we're giving out swag to presenters.
Mute his mic. Yeah, Amal, we're getting feedback from you.
And I'll contact you after.
Can you hear us, Amal? I think the content or your voice is either coming through your speakers and going back in to your mic, or you're watching us on YouTube.
I love seeing just how closely related.
I think he's a little bit delayed, like from where he's watching us right now. I think he's watching us on YouTube, which is a bit delayed. So I think he'll hear us in a second. He should be watching on StreamYard, but stream is lagged. Interesting. We'll have to look into that. Big delay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Al.
Hey guys, can you hear me?
Yeah.
You got to be watching on StreamYard if you're on the stream.
Hey, your audio is not clear. Maybe I can't hear you.
Oh. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, everything is fine with my side.
Oh no.
Okay.
Amal, can you hear us?
Okay.
Let me try messaging him.
Video is perfect, but I can't hear you.
Okay, let me. I'm gonna kick him and not ban. Let's kick him from the studio and have him rejoin. Let's see. Just give me one sec. Streaming can always be a pretty finicky thing. We'll have to keep working on this as we continue streaming.
Yeah, if we can get him back on, it might be interesting.
Notes for off sync. That's a great comment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just sent him an invite on Discord, so hopefully he will join back up.
Dan's comment, we're having a consensus issue here.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, no, I'm really excited to see his project as well. So hopefully we can get him up here in just a minute. I guess while we're waiting, I do have a couple questions I could kind of ask the general audience that I was thinking, oh, it looks like we might have him back here.
Yep. Let's add him in. Cool. Okay. Amal, can you hear us now?
Hey. Same problems there.
Same problems?
It's lagging?
No, I think he can't hear us, but we can hear him.
I don't know what is wrong.
Okay.
Here, let's
do you just want to tag message him and just ask him to
Yeah. Let me just message him. I'll just have him just start walking through the project because I don't think he's on Discord. So yeah, unfortunate. I mean, I feel like it's probably like a mic issue where it's possible he's wearing headphones and it's not coming through it's coming through something else. So yeah, you want to invite me now? Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you just have to join the StreamYard. I'll send it to you guys. But we'll try to get him to walk through his demo. We'll see what's going on here. We'll have to pull people on stage and make sure this is all settled next week.
Yeah. Yeah, so Anmol,
Yeah.
we can't hear you. We
So
can hear you.
we're,
So yeah.
I'll go ahead. Yeah, Amal. So here I'm gonna remove him for right now. I'll follow up with him. We'll have a recording and we'll send it in. We'll send it in Discord. Sorry, Amal, about this. But we'll have to figure out what the issues are there. And we'll have you present another time. Sorry about that. But for right now, I'm going to pull on Dan, and I think Al is also coming on.
Hey, everybody.
They're going to talk about week 4.
Hey. Sorry, Anmol, if you're hearing this a couple minutes from now on YouTube. We'll get you to do a live recording. We're super excited to see your project, so we still want to make sure that we see it. We'll get you to do a live recording, and we'll get to see it. And sorry, everybody, for the technical issues, but we're here to talk about week 4, so let's do it. Hey, Jacob. Hey, Cody. Hey, Al.
Hey.
Guys, awesome.
What's up?
Hey.
Yeah, we'll let you take it from here. It looks like week 4 content has been dropped. So if you guys want to go ahead and lead in, I will just let you guys take it over from here.
Jacob, you want to share screen? You were going to do the top level, and we could talk about some of the content. So we can give a little bit of background information about why this content is in there, what you guys are going to learn, and kind of go through it. So if you want to be our guide, we'll be like the background info.
Yeah, awesome. Sounds good to me. Okay, guys, so here we are in the psychedelic, like rendering recursive thing. I always love this part of the presentation. And, here we go. Let me refresh my browser. And week 4 should be dropped. And there we go. We can see week 4 is here. And so kind of where are we in the course, right? And I kind of said last week, and I think this week we're at a huge inflection point, right? So like last week we were actually, we built a block explorer, and we were reaching out to these real nodes and real world stuff and pulling data from them. And we were also able to, we learned how to like sign a transaction and write data to these blockchains. So we're no longer like doing these little toy projects on our computers. We're actually talking to the real world. And I think that's like a super exciting thing. And so last week, the Block Explorer, we weren't writing smart contract code just yet, but we were like getting right about there, right? And this week is all about actually writing smart contract code. So this is, for me, this is like really, really cool stuff. And I think I heard Darian say like, he's really excited about writing these contracts and getting these like put out there into production. And by production, that probably mean, I'm assuming he meant, mainnet production is what we will call that in Ethereum. And so this week is all about like Solidity syntax and learning how to just write like you would any other programming language, what the data types are, like, strings and integers and things like that. So we're going to go over all the syntax there, how to write functions and the different types of functions you can write in Solidity. Solidity is an object-oriented language. So you're going to have a lot of those types of concepts where you'll kind of have private, protected, and public functions. There's slightly different names in Solidity, and we'll get into that during this week. And then also, we're going to talk about how to, communicate with these contracts that we're going to be writing. And the 2 big things that we'll be seeing this week, well, 3 really, is one, like we're going to be able to deploy our contracts onto these test networks. We can even go for mainnet if we want, but we might not be ready for that yet. But we'll be able to deploy our contracts. That's one type of interaction. And again, like we learned in the Block Explorer, we'll be able to read from the blockchain, but we'll also be able to write and make transactions to the blockchain as well this week. And to set this all up, one of the most critical and important tools we'll be using through this week, we'll be introducing it, and we'll be using it through the rest of the course as Hardhat. Hardhat is this tool that basically allows you to spin up a local blockchain, on your local computer and write your smart contracts and compile them and deploy them to your local blockchain on your computer. And this is like a really important thing. We'll be using it throughout the rest of the course. It gives you a way to kind of write smart contracts, deploy them locally, test them locally, so that before you use real money to deploy them to, your tokens to mainnet and they moon, like this gives you a chance to kind of test that all out. So
Jacob, do you mind if I highlight a couple things in those first 4 sections?
Sure, yeah, I'm just blowing through it, man.
No, this is great. You gave exactly the context. If you want to leave the course tree up there, Al, do you mind maybe talking about some of the things about the first 4 days that like excite you and that you find the most fun about this content. Al has like the most fresh like take on some of this content right here. I would love to hear what you find most fun and engaging about some of this stuff currently.
Yeah, for sure. I think I'm like, you know, like freaked out that Jacob. It's just Jacob gave such a fresh update on the entire course tree. I like not that. I know you can do that, Jacob, but you were not as close to this week 4 content as Dan and I. So I was very surprised. I guess you are super close. So yeah, that was a great explanation. But I can definitely hit at some of the high levels that Jacob was also mentioning. So for the first kind of 2 or 3 sections, we have intro to Solidity. So we level the playing field. We throw out any prior experience that you might have, and we're teaching you a brand new programming language. So that's a really powerful thing because you can just jump in there. And if Merkle trees seemed kind of funky, if Patricia Merkle trees were something that like you weren't super vibing with, that's okay. You can just jump in here and learn a brand new programming language. And obviously Solidity is one of many smart contract programming languages. It's just kind of the one that we are very familiar with and kind of tend to prefer because it has a very active developer community. So we jump right into kind of Solidity basics, syntax. One cool thing that is also kind of briefly mentioned is Solidity was created specifically for Ethereum. So when Ethereum was being designed, the original team was like, should we use JavaScript? Should we use, C++? And what ended up coming out of those discussions is, let's scrap that and we're going to create a brand new programming language specific to Ethereum, to smart contract development, and that is Solidity. So we cover Solidity from the ground up, literally defining basic data types down to, as Jacob mentioned, right? And also in this article, but contained within this article is we also kind of dive into the historical concept behind smart contracts and why that, obviously we need to look at Solidity as a programming language, but also we need to look at like the consequence of learning Solidity and why we need to learn Solidity, because we want to develop smart contracts, but we want to actually give you a comprehensive take on them. So we actually start off with like the early concept of smart contracts, going back to the 1990s with Nick Szabo originally kind of coining the term and kind of how we see them today, how they've evolved. So that's why you see there in that section, there's like smart contracts, the theoretical and kind of more historical approach, and then smart contracts, the Ethereum approach. Because obviously this is 30, 40 years later after they were ideated, they tend to, have certain features for, specific to Ethereum smart contracts. So yeah, Solidity, smart contract, equalizing the field. No matter if you feel funky on Merkle trees, this is a fantastic week. It's so much fun. You just get to pick up a new programming language. Worst case, if you don't kind of fall into the smart contract rabbit hole, worst case, you're coding, you're learning computer science, you're learning cryptography primitives. All of these things will help you become a fuller, computer scientist or software developer in general. So yeah, that's Solidity and smart contracts. We also did a bunch of stuff on contract communication. Jacob mentioned like we started with early primitives like communicating over JSON RPC. And yeah, exactly. Contract communication. We cover here 2 very important things. When you compile a smart contract in Solidity, that compilation process produces 2 very important artifacts. It produces a bunch of things, but 2 that are very important for our purposes as Web3 developers. One is the ABI and one is the bytecode. We spend more time focusing on the ABI because that's what we need in order to become like super, Web3 developers. Basically, the ABI is what we need to provide front-end tools like Ethers.js, the Alchemy SDK, and Hardhat. We need to give them the ABI of a contract in order for them to help us communicate with a contract super easily. And this lesson kind of just dives into that. And it's super low level, but guess what? You come out of it a well-rounded Web3 developer. You come out of it, what if you're hired to open Zeppelin as a smart contract developer, and someone asks you, oh yeah, what about that contracts ABI? And you're like, well, I'm just good at Solidity. That wouldn't really kind of gel too well probably at open Zeppelin. So they want people that can communicate in this language and be like, oh yeah, the ABI, all these functions, boom, 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 beam, beam, beam. It's exactly the smart speak that I'm doing now. That's what you need to do at Open Zeppelin. So yeah, that's the high level of kind of my portion of content. But I'll also throw it to Dan because he had some other cool sections and impactful sections as well, kind of the latter end. Oh, I forgot hard hat, Dan, but do you want to introduce it? You're pretty fresh on it.
Yeah. I mean, let me just give a high level here too. I mean, like what Al is saying, exactly what we're trying to do, right? We're trying to give you guys the fundamentals behind the scenes of what's going on here with smart contract development. We're not just going to toss you in there and just be like, okay, program some Solidity, right? Because behind the scenes, there's a lot going on, right? The blockchain is a really interesting execution engine, right? Like there's a lot of stuff that needs to be understood about where your code is running, who's running that code, what are the consensus rules that allow this code and the state to be updated. And so blockchain is this interesting area where you have to understand the execution environment really strongly to be a good smart contract developer. And we're going to make sure that you guys understand all of that stuff. Hard Hat is going to be a fantastic tool that's going to make it so we can test smart contracts. The best way to become a good smart contract developer, by the way, get really, really good at writing unit test cases. Because when you're doing smart contract development, you can write good unit test cases. That's going to be, you can iterate on it really quickly and test your assumptions. So you could be like, how does this storage variable update? Like if I do this, what's going to happen? Write a test case, see whether your assumptions hold true, and that's how you're going to learn, right? So a lot of the exercises that you're going to see down here, we have you write smart contracts and then you execute it against test cases. I encourage you guys to go look at the test cases inside of the IDE, and even just maybe Jacob, if you want to go into for and then address interactions there and jump into sending Ether, right? And just so this first stage, we're going to be telling you how to send Ether from a smart contract to an externally owned account. If you take a look, there's test cases over there on the right-hand side. We want you guys taking a look at those test cases to understand. You could take these test cases and put them into a Hard Hat project and use them to develop your own contract, right? And getting good at doing these sorts of test cases is going to really help you in the long run. So I encourage you guys to definitely look at that. We're going to be doing something very fundamental here where we're going to be looking at what Al was saying, which is understanding how we can communicate with smart contracts from the front end. So when you're communicating into the Ethereum virtual machine, that's called a transaction, right? And in order to do a transaction, we need to know the ABI. We need to know the bytecode if we're going to deploy the contract. And then what we do for the rest of the week is we explain how, when you're in a contract, how do you communicate with other contracts, right? Because that's a big part of what is so exciting about Ethereum today is contracts communicating with other contracts, right? Being able to build on somebody else's ERC20 tokens, right? You have all these ERC20 tokens and you have a decentralized exchange like Uniswap that can interface with all of them. That's all due to the ABI, which allows it to understand how to send call data between all these different contracts. And if you're like, Dan, I don't know what ABI and call data is, you will very soon. So we are super excited for you guys to dive into this content. Maybe we can start to open it up for some questions. I know I have a first question. Maybe I'll pass it over to Jacob. Jacob's been a programmer for quite a long time. I don't want to age you, Jacob. But he's learned a lot of languages in that experience that he comes with. And Jacob, I have a question for you. What do you like about the Solidity language? What is something that you really enjoy about it?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think for me and for my background, what I can appreciate and what's really useful for me is the fact that Solidity borrows from several object-oriented languages. So you'll have multiple inheritance concepts like you'll see in C++, and me being kind of one of those older devs, definitely programmed my share of C++. So there's that kind of thing. There's also this kind of more modern syntax. You also see C++, JavaScript and Java, things like that, you'll find that the syntax is very, very similar. So I found that really cool. And then, one thing I really liked was, and you won't find this in other non-blockchain types of languages, but there's like, these new primitive data types that you'll probably have never seen in other languages. So like one example is right here, you can see on my screen, is the address, right? So we've already talked a lot about addresses. I think what Ethereum is: externally owned account addresses, smart account addresses, things like that. And it happens to be a first-class citizen. So this, if you notice, like if you're writing this in JavaScript, this address right here will actually be a string. But when we're looking at Solidity code, this address here is actually a hexadecimal value. And I don't want to give away too much, but as we get a little bit further through this week, this address actually has functions on it, and we can do different things like get the balance of the address and things like that. So while it's a different language that we're used to, it does borrow a lot of concepts. So the syntax shouldn't be anything too strange for anyone at this point.
That was like a really interesting design decision for Solidity, or for the EVM specifically, is that they decided to make smart contracts first-class citizens, right? So smart contracts can do everything that EOAs can do except send a transaction, right? They can't initiate a transaction. A transaction always is initiated by an EOA. But everything else, right, you can have these addresses and you could communicate with them and just send call data, which is going to be translated into a function and all its signatures, and you could just interact with it. So this address primitive that Jacob is talking about, this is going to be the most important thing that you need to get down when you're doing like smart contract development. You need to understand, how do I communicate with other addresses? Whether you're sending Ether to an EOA, maybe you have like a multi-sig wallet and you have like 5 people in the multi-sig wallet measuring, they're all governing a treasury, and they want to be able to say like who gets some of the money from the treasury because they're going to do some development work or some design work or something like that. You may have this, transaction that you need to have 5 people sign off on, and then the funds move from one account to the other, right? Very often you're going to find that you're either sending data or sending Ether to another address. And this is going to be a really core thing that we're going to really spend quite a bit of time on with content this week. That was a great highlight, Jacob. Al, same question over to you. Is there, what do you really like about Solidity?
Yeah, in full agreement with Jacob, the 79-year-old software engineer.
Wow, Patricia with the heat.
Patricia with the heat.
If I'm 79, then I think I'm doing all right.
You're looking great, man. You're sorry, I don't want to get into that. But
I saw Vito calling Jacob sexy, so yeah, I saw that in the chat.
Yeah. 79 is the new sexy.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, Jacob hit it on the dot. My take, I always kind of gravitate towards it or think about it this way. I believe Dan framed it to me this way: is a reason Ethereum as a smart contract platform is very accessible or ubiquitous, meaning it's everywhere. Let's say accessible. It's very accessible. Why? Because the contract powering the smart contracts, Solidity, is a very accessible language. It's a very well-written, high-level language, very similar to JavaScript, which is the most popular programming language on the planet. So the fact that they made it very similar to the most popular programming on the planet gives Ethereum a property of ubiquity that is very important, and a property of accessibility. This is a problem that other platforms seem to have, where I'm not throwing shots, but they seem to form a developer ecosystem around an inaccessible language to power the platform. Shout out Cardano. Like, I think they are also smart contracts, but from what I hear, the developer ecosystem is bottlenecked by how difficult it is to access and learn the smart contract language. I don't even know which one they use out of probably the same problem I'm communicating. But yeah, that's my favorite part about Solidity. It's super accessible. It's very easy to learn. And I've said this before, a smart contract in Solidity is much more human legible than a traditional contract. So like just compare a traditional, like, I don't know, like rent contract, and it's like 1 billion pages long, and it says like, here thereafter the executor of the estate is X, and then this person can do this if this happens, and it's 1 billion pages of that, and you read like one of it, and then you just sign 20 lines signing away your soul because you can't understand that. No one can understand legalese. But you see a smart contract, a well-written smart contract, maybe for the same thing, like for a rental escrow thing. I like just knowing basic solidity, like just knowing what solidity is without knowing like the smart contract programming language, like how to code, it gets you more legibility into a contract. So if I, go up to a normie and say like, hey, this is, a function and it does this whenever it's called, and I just explain a quick kind of 10-minute elevator pitch on solidity, I bet you that contract is more readable than a legalese garbage traditional contract. I hate those contracts. Everyone should, because they suck. So
I'm sorry. I'm sorry to laugh in the middle of your. It was just so funny because it really did feel like a soapbox moment. So I think whoever's manning the Alchemy University, I think it's Cody, right? It's got to be Cody over there. Whoever's manning the Alchemy University, I think caught on to that the soapbox moment and said your opinions are your own, which I thought was very funny and apt. But I thought that you had an extremely good point. And I also really enjoyed the question that Nico had up there a moment ago. I don't know. Can you bring it back, Alchemy University? Yeah. Okay. So this is actually a really good question, right? Which is, I mean, we kind of talked about this idea that addresses and you could like interact with other addresses on a blockchain. And the question is, could you just do this on, a centralized computer? Definitely. Right. I mean, you could recreate the EVM and the EVM could just be one machine, right? And it could just be the same thing, right? What is the big difference between like traditional computing and what we see today in smart contracts? And I think something that is so very different is just the transparency, right? And the openness of the ecosystem, right? Because you have all of these decentralized nodes that are running the network, and we have the source code that's out there in the open. We actually have open APIs, right? And because we have open APIs, we get all of these standards like ERC20, which is a big standard we're going to be talking about in a moment, or moment in time in the course. When we talk about that standard is something that you typically interface with. So something that you're going to be learning this week that's going to be very specific to smart contracts is how to communicate with interfaces. You will see this in other programming languages as well, but it becomes so important with smart contracts because we have these standards that you need to interact with so often that when you're programming something like a multi-sig wallet or Uniswap decentralized exchange, you need to understand what is the ERC20 standard? How am I going to interact with that so that I can interact with any ERC20 contract that's out there, right? Same thing with like governance protocols, or same thing with like NFTs. All these things we are typically describing an interface, or like what are the expected methods and data properties that I can pull from these types of contracts, right? So I wouldn't say that it's necessarily like specific to blockchains, but it becomes like a different kind of field that we're working in just because of this transparency, right? It does feel different, despite the fact that we are using very much of the same kind of computing, items that you would find in other programming languages. Super interesting question. I think interfaces is a big thing that you guys will find you're taking away from the course this week. And also behind the scenes, how interfaces are being used to send call data between different contracts. And if you guys can take that away from this week, week 4, then we'll have done our job super well. If you can understand how to communicate from the front end to a contract via transaction, like Al was going over in the first half. And then if you can understand how to communicate from a contract to an EOA, or a contract to a contract through an interface, or manually encoding the call data, that is like such a huge step forward into the world of smart contracts. And you're already like, beyond half of the people out there trying to learn Solidity, you will have gone quite far into it already by that point. So super important to take that away. All
Well
right.
said, Dan.
Thanks, Al. Do we have any other points you guys want? You have any questions?
Or any questions from any folks in here?
Yeah, from the community.
I'd be interested. Interfaces. We should totally do like a live. Should we learn Rust? I think, Dan, you were interested, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. We would love to eventually do something similar with Rust that we did with JavaScript. I mean, that would be super cool. That's something that we've been talking about for quite some time. In the meantime, though, if you follow Vito and Albert, I mean, they've been doing some really cool Solana content lately. Definitely check them out and see, I know I saw a Vito post recently where he was learning Rust, and then he came out like a little anime figure. I follow Vito religiously on Twitter. So he's definitely learning Rust. And yeah, I think there's good reason to learn it. I mean, it's a great language on its own. So like, even if you're not doing Solana development, like Rust is just a super cool language. But then, also why not understand, a whole nother ecosystem as well to be able to like compare these two, right? So, I mean, I think Rust, they did a Stack Overflow, did their yearly developer survey, and Rust year over year is becoming like the most exciting language that people want to learn. So there's definitely a really great roadmap ahead for the language.
Yeah, definitely. And unless there's anything else to add to that, like, one thing I just kind of, I just was going to close out with the week 4 assignments. So if there's anything else, go ahead and speak up. If not, I'll just kind of go ahead and just intro what they'll be doing for the end of the week.
Sounds good to me.
Okay, sounds good. So what we're going to do this week, I mean, you're going to go through all these different things. And, again, everything we talked about is super important. Intro to hard hat and running that local blockchain is going to be super critical for this week and the rest of the course. And at the end of the week, the assignment for everyone will be to write a contract called a smart contract winner. And I'm not going to go through the details of this. You'll build up to it. But what you'll see is, you're actually going to be writing a smart contract, and you're actually going to be interacting with the girly testnet, right? And the way we're going to do this is, again, through using hard hat, and we'll get into the details about how you configure hard hat to talk to these different testnets, how you write your smart contracts, compile on your local machine, test it out, and then kind of go to the testnet or mainnet. So just wanted to say that'll be the homework for the culmination of what we learned this week. And that's all I have for you guys. Dan, Al, Cody, anything else?
Yeah, Al, if you or Jacob, if you scroll down there a little bit on that assignment, there is a leaderboard. You'll find yourself on the leaderboard if you can make the event emit a winner event. So you'll find yourself up there in lights if you can get that smart contract to emit its event. So I challenge you all to make sure that you're on the leaderboard by the end of the week. We'll be checking it out. I want to see hundreds of you, thousands of you up there on the leaderboard. So far, there are no matching entries.
Who's going to be the first?
Who will be the first? But don't worry about being the first. Take your time, get through the content, learn it good. Don't get out there too soon. I mean, take your time, but we want to see you up there, by next week. If you can get up there, that really proves to us that you understood the concepts from the week. And like I said, I mean, it's such a huge step forward. If you understand transactions and message calls, like that is like a huge step in this space. So yeah, just wanted to point it out, the leaderboard.
Awesome. Cool. I'll quit sharing my screen right now.
Great. Well, we're coming up to the hour here. Thank you, Al, Dan, and Jacob, for kind of going through the content for everyone. That was super helpful. I love these sessions. It really gives us the opportunity to ask questions from the community and give you give the community a bit more of how we're thinking about the content. So yeah, I know there's a bunch more questions in the chat. I'm sorry we didn't get to everything. Feel free to join the Discord, which is university.alchemy.com/Discord. And that's a unique link, and it'll get you right in there if you're not already in there. And we can answer all your questions there. People from the community can. Yeah, and so we'll see you guys. Enjoy week 4, first off, which just dropped. You guys should have gotten the email as they were just talking about. And then make sure to follow us on Twitter. hit that bell on YouTube and follow us so you know when we're having these every week. And yeah, let us know how you guys like these sessions, what else we can do to make these sessions better for you guys and help you learn quicker and better and help you get a job in Web3, right? That's one of the goals, or start your next company. Let us know how we can help out. Well, peace, love, and Web3, and we'll see you guys later.
Thanks, everybody.
Take care.
Good luck on
everyone.
the content.